Well, welcome back to All Star Weddings and Studios, and we're excited to have another episode. And it is time now for DJ Tyler to kind of let it rip here. So, Ty, thanks for coming on. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Having an amazing Tuesday.
That's right. It is a Tuesday. They blend together some days, but I'm excited to have you on. I know we had scheduled this to kind of get to know you a little bit more, right? So, just to catch everybody up, especially with the live broadcast, this will be our first live broadcast since our initial test run. So, what these are get to know your talent type videos, which we'll be housing on the website under the talent's bio, just so people can get to know who they'd be potentially booking, right? So get to know Tyler in a way that maybe he didn't get to make it onto the meeting when I met with them, but it's a way for them to get to know each person. And Tyler's going to be the one we're going to talk about today. And we're going to go through some questions, more of a Q&A, but it's a way for anybody who may not know enough about him to get to know more about him and therefore you, Tyler. So welcome. And again, thanks for taking the time out today.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So we're going to go into the questions pretty much right away, but just give a quick background to everyone. Tyler's been with us pretty much close to day one for me. So we've been in business 45 years, but I took over about 10 years ago in ownership. And shortly thereafter, Tyler joined our flow and has been crushing it ever since. He's been doing this, I think, longer than me or close to it. So we'll go through that in this meeting as well. But it's just a lot of fun to have the guys coming on and really let people get to know them. So this is that time to shine. So Tyler, we are just going to jump right in. So first question, my friend, what originally drew you into DJing, and how did you transition into doing weddings?
So I actually come from a family of musicians and DJs. So my uncles have been DJing as long as I can remember. So I was always around it. When I was 12 or 13 years old, I started working for my uncle doing weddings and stuff. Did my first solo wedding at 16, pretty much the day after I got my driver's license. So it was pretty easy. I started off doing weddings, and from there kind of transitioned into other stuff. But weddings have been primary for me since day one.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so kind of family history. So okay, well, I think that kind of leads right into the next question. How would you describe your overall style and energy behind the booth on a wedding day?
Yeah, my style is pretty open. It really kind of depends on the flow of the day and the crowd that is in attendance. Every wedding's different. We treat every wedding different. No two weddings are the same. I would say my basic style would be kind of the best of everything as far as music goes. We know that people typically don't want to listen to an entire song. So my style has kind of adapted to that over the years, where I'll give you the best parts of a song and then give you the best parts of the next song instead of giving you the entire song. This allows me to fill in not only more music, but keep the energy up on the dance floor as well.
Oh, absolutely. All right, great. That again, you keep touching on the next question, which is kind of fun for me. How would you handle mixing different, or how do you handle mixing different generations and music tastes together into one crowd?
Yeah. Again, it's all dynamic. Every demographic's different. Every wedding has different cultures and kind of traditions that they want incorporated. So it's important for me to be able to kind of give every element of the day that our clients are looking for. Whether that be a different style of music, a different tradition of music, or a different culture of music. I do a lot of multicultural weddings, whether it be Spanish, German, Greek, you name it. I've done it over the years. I just did one this past weekend where the groom's family was heavily Mexican, so we incorporated a lot of Mexican music as well. So it's just giving everybody a little bit of everything without overdoing one thing. When we do multicultural weddings, it's important to understand that the dynamic in the room and the demographic of the room is wide. So we don't want to stay in one area or one genre too long. So I tend to mix it up and give everybody kind of a little bit of everything throughout the night.
Okay, great. That's good to know. And I mean, I have been told this by others about you from past clients, and that's kind of what the reviews say is, well, right? You truly do have that. They like to use the word eclectic, right? And the whole wide range, and that's something that's so important. So thanks for reinforcing that a little bit on that question. Now, I would say the next question too. What is your philosophy on handling guest requests for song requests and versus staying true to the couple's vision?
Yeah, I mean, again, we know that we're going to get requests throughout the night. Every wedding has aunts, uncles, that are going to come up. They're going to want to request, celebration. We are family and all that stuff, So it's important for me to kind of let the couple enjoy the party. So I kind of act as that middle person from, a great request to a request that may not work very well, So if they come up and they request a song that's on the do not playlist or just doesn't fit the overall vibe, I'll typically say something like, sure, I'll try to get to it a little bit later for you. And then just kind of move on from there.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And I mean, there's so many different ways that requests come in. And I think being able to adjust on the go is a key to not just your success, but the success in a wedding in general. So, all right. Go one that it's so common to hear, but I'm going to let you just respond to the statement. Clients will say in their initial inquiry on our meetings constantly, they'll say, all we really want is a fun, full dance floor. That means to you, Tyler.
Yeah. So that would be a majority of the people on the dance floor throughout the night. Once dinner ends and the dance floor opens, the goal is to get as many of those people from their seats to the dance floor as possible. And it's kind of a step process for me. I typically start dinner off kind of slow. And then, as we kind of progress, I get up into higher tempo stuff that are getting people bopping in their seats, tapping their toes to make that transition from dinner to the dance floor that much easier. Because at that point, they're already ready to get up and dance. So it's not a minority thing for me. It's a majority thing. I want a majority of the room on the floor. And that comes down to playing the right music at the right time, starting off the dance floor with something that's broad that everybody will enjoy versus kind of narrowing in on, one niche song or genre of music. Play something that brings everybody to the floor and then kind of go from there.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Now, this is one that you may need a second to think of which moment, but can you share a favorite or most memorable wedding moment that you've ever created?
Yeah, actually, this is one that comes up a lot for me. 3 years ago, New Year's Eve, we were doing a wedding for a couple, and the bride wanted to do something fun with her father for the father-daughter dance. So we started off the song, normal. I think it was "Dance with My Daughter" or something like that. And then I have different effects on my controller that I can use. So I used one that made it seem like something broke, and then the father of the bride and the bride came over, and then they dressed up like Slash from AC/DC, and then they came out and they played "Sweet Child of Mine." It was really, really cool.
Okay.
That was a moment that I will remember for forever because, again, it was New Year's Eve wedding, so New Year's Eve weddings just kind of hit different to begin with. But they did something different than everybody else that made the entire group kind of gasp when they thought something broke, and then they were all excited and cheered when they came back out. So that was a really cool moment.
Right. And more of the idea of being startled and then all of a sudden, oh, that was planned. That was hot. Yeah. Okay. Fun. So now kind of converting.
I think Guns N' Roses, sorry.
Yeah. No, in the end, I mean, you could have had a mashup of something. You never know. Maybe they did something. So, all right. So now moving from the DJing into the MCing, how do you approach your role as an MC to keep the reception timeline moving seamlessly?
So I work, with all the vendors there, whether it be, the wedding coordinator, the catering staff, photographers, videographers. I work with them to make sure that we stay on time for a lot of stuff. We know that throughout the night, different things are going to happen, whether it be, going outside for a sunset picture or, something else. So I'm constantly kind of the timekeeper, making sure that our timeline's working the way that it's supposed to, changing things that we might have to change on the fly, whether it be moving toast to another time during the night or, condensing certain things or going out and grabbing, the bride and groom and the photographer and saying, hey, we got to go and do the cake cutting, whatever be the case. I'm constantly going through the timeline, making sure that what we're supposed to be doing kind of happens when it's supposed to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, truly that people don't talk enough about the timeline and the organization of it, which actually is kind of a combo question. Then how do you prepare beforehand to ensure the couple's unique personalities shine through in the music?
So we always have our planning meetings, a week or two before the wedding. I try to do it, as close as I'm comfortable doing to the wedding, just to make sure that kind of all those details are finalized. If we were to do a 30 or 60 day out meeting and go over stuff, a lot of stuff can change in that time frame. So when we do our meetings, we're going over everything that we're doing, coming up with kind of a game plan, or if the venue already has a timeline, I have them send that to me and we go over all that. Throughout the day, again, I'm constantly paying attention to the timeline itself. I print out kind of a runner show for myself that shows everything that we're supposed to do, what songs are supposed to play and stuff like that. So I'm just constantly reinforcing, what we went over or what we're going over to make sure that the game plan is set in stone by the time it's go time.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I mean, again, you can be prepared and then you can be truly ready. And there's a big difference. So awesome. All right. So what's the absolute best part of being a DJ for someone's big day?
It's just a lot of fun being part of one of, if not the most important day of, two people's lives. Getting married is a huge milestone in everybody's life, and being able to kind of help bring happiness and kind of joy to that day. It's important to me, and I take a lot of pride in making sure that my couples get exactly what they're looking for. It may not always be the ideal situation or the ideal music for everybody that's there, but it's important to me to tailor that wedding to that couple so that they are as happy as possible. At the end of the day, I want them to get married, drink, and have a great time. That's my goal. So with that, obviously comes a lot of stress and kind of important stuff for me to do and take care of, but I want to take as much stress off of them as possible and put it on myself. They just need to sit back and enjoy the day.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we probably have 3 or 4 questions left. This one actually pivots a little bit to the direction of all-star weddings specifically. So why the all-star partnership? What made you choose to team up with our brand, and what does being part of the team mean to you?
So when you reached out, however many years ago it was, we had a really good conversation about, kind of DJing in and of itself and ways that we can kind of set us apart from everybody else. And when we first talked, I knew that the two of us were going to get along great. We both kind of had the same vision of what we want for every wedding, and that's ultimately the perfect wedding for all of our couples. And, being a DJ for, I think it was 19 or 20 years at the time, I had a lot of obviously experience doing weddings. You had a lot of experience doing weddings. And I think the two of us just worked really, really well when we talked that first and second time, where the game plans that we came up with and the direction that we came up with for All Star, it was something that I wanted to be a part of. A lot of larger companies, it's more the quantity over quality. And, with us, it's more, we want that quality versus the quantity, so we want to make sure that all of our clients are happy. I can't even guess how many reviews we've gotten over the last decade or so. But, running a 5-star, review through 8-9 different platforms, that's a huge achievement. That's something that I'm proud of as a DJ, is being part of that. And I know, our other DJs like Angel and Peter and Brian, they're excited about that too. When we see those reviews from our couples, it makes us happy. It makes us day. We might be, having a bad day. We might be stressed out or whatever, but at the end of the day, when we see all these reviews from our couples, it just makes us happy, and that's important to All Star, and that's important to me. So that partnership was kind of a no-brainer. We work very well together. All Star has a great marketing team. They have a great process, and it works better than any other company I've been a part of in the past. So again, it was a pretty easy decision.
I'll take the compliment, but I'll also send it right back. I mean, partnering with the right people is what has always mattered to me and our prior owner, my mentor. I think the key factors in the success of a wedding is always putting clients first, right? Like, I'll oftentimes, on our consultations with prospective couples, I'll oftentimes say that we are an elite customer service company that does weddings. Well, maybe a joke, because we are a wedding company. Truly, the customer service part is what should always win and dominate. And I think that is the most exciting part for me, to see it unfold in your weddings and all of our talents' weddings, and our photography and video and our lighting, all those things. Like, I feel that this market deserves to keep taking the steps up, instead of where it had kind of tried to get itself watered down post-COVID. Yeah. It's our job to keep it going high, and people don't hire us and pay the money they pay to have an okay day. They want to remember it forever. They want to be remembered forever. And so with that, I appreciate what you said, because I think that is the key factor in the success of a wedding, is ensuring that clients aren't just getting a day, they're getting the greatest day of their life, right? Like shy of the birth of a child. We say this all the time. This is their biggest day, and we want to reinforce that. So thank you for what you said, for sure.
Yeah, and we make it a point. 20, 25 years ago, we did things completely different than we do things now. Music was different, everything was different. And there's some DJs and some companies that are still doing things the same way that we did them 20, 25 years ago, and that's fine. That works for them, but that's not giving that elite experience that we're talking about. Our DJs kind of go above and beyond to evolve, throughout the years, to change the way that we mix, change the music that we play, to kind of keep up with the times that we're in. A lot of stuff has changed, and the way that mixing happens completely different than it was 20, 25 years ago when we had CDs and vinyls. So
yeah,
our team is huge on learning, and we're constantly having meetings to go over stuff and reinforce things and give ideas and take feedback. Me and you have DJed together a couple of times, two completely different DJs, two completely different styles. But when you put them together, it just gives you something that you're not going to see out of a lot of other DJs.
Yeah, for sure. That actually does kind of, you touched on it, and you gave me a history, but now let's kind of reinforce the depth of your experience. So I know you run conventions and other things. Can you maybe talk about why, you train other DJs. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, it was just something, honestly, that started during COVID. As soon as we got the ability to have more than 6 people in a room, DJs from this area, we got together at my studio, my office, and we just played and had a great time.
Yeah.
And that kind of slowly evolved into more of a conference and a convention. Probably 20 years ago, when the ADJA had a Massachusetts chapter, we had a meeting at my uncle's office where we just set up a bunch of speakers and tested them and listened to them, different speakers from JBL, Yorkville, RCF, the works. And, as that evolved, we had the idea when we started, this thing again, post-COVID, me and my partner that started the conference to, do that again and kind of bring it to a larger scale. So we did our first conference in Quincy. I think we had 30 or 40 different speakers that we set up and listened to, and that was pretty much it. And then at the end of the shootout, the speaker shootout, we just had a party. The following year, we decided to do it bigger, so we turned it into a full 3-day convention where we do, mixed training, MC training, personal, confidence training and stuff like that. And throughout that process, it kind of molded itself into, we are the largest DJ conference in New England, outside of New Jersey. And the DJs that we've trained over the year and kind of, taught how to not be a DJ from 25 years ago, they've evolved themselves, and they're now, doing double and triple the amount of weddings that they were doing before, just because of that. So that's important to me to, not only be a DJ myself that does things a little bit differently than everybody else, but to be able to evolve that and kind of mold that into what our couples are looking for every day, not over MCing, nobody wants to hear air horns during their wedding and stuff like that. That's important to me. So that we brought that to our conference, and we turned it into a large conference where, I think the last year that we did it, I think we had like almost 300 DJs in attendance.
Wow.
So that's just something that's kind of close to my heart. And obviously, we do the DJ training here with All Star. But yeah, I take kind of my personal experiences, and I've done conferences over the years, for the last 20 or so years. I've probably done 6 to 8 conferences, where again, I kind of preach the same thing: be different than everybody else. Anybody can go out and hire a DJ that does the same thing as everybody else. That's not going to differentiate their wedding from everybody else's wedding. So that's just something that we reinforce. So that's why that happened, and it's something I'm super proud of.
No, absolutely. Thanks for touching on that. We're going into our last question after this comment, but it's about the experience, the flow, the planning, the accountability, the peace of mind, the backup system. That just doesn't get talked about nearly enough. It gets overlooked by someone who's a smooth talker on a 10-minute conversation and a cheap price, and that's exactly what the outcome of the wedding ends up being. And so I love the reinforcement of such the detail, the attention to detail, and how important every little thing and being different, right? Like you don't want your wedding to be just like everyone else's. Otherwise, you could just purchase that play Spotify list. That's just not what it's supposed to be. And a tremendous MC keeps a flow going. And it's one thing to do one great wedding and get one great review. It's another thing to get 3,000 plus and keep going in that direction. And that's the epitome of what we want for our couples. So, all right. So this is final strong question here, and I am not looking for the humble. Hey, everyone's great choices out there, and that's all true to a point. However, let's say they're considering 5, 6 other DJs that seem so close, and maybe on an apples to apples surface, it looks like the pricing's the same. Never that the case, but we'll just assume that you are now one of those choices. Why are they picking DJ Tyler to do their wedding above anybody else? What is the separating, differentiating factor that is going to be, it's Tyler, there's no other choice. I could pay double and I'd still pick Tyler. Why are they picking you?
Yeah, I mean, we go over this, in our meetings when we meet with potential clients. And I think the most important thing, again, is just being different and not giving that cookie cutter wedding experience that you can get anywhere else. A lot of our couples, they come into this thinking that they have to play the celebrations, the We Are Families, the YMCAs and stuff to get people to dance. And yes, absolutely, people will dance to those songs, but there's nothing that's going to differentiate your wedding and those kind of same 70 songs that you hear at other weddings to your wedding. So my goal is to make it a personal experience instead of just an experience. You can get that basic stuff again, like you said. You can hook up a Spotify playlist and hit play, and Spotify has that mix feature now where you can tell it when to mix a song.
Sure.
But you're not going to get that personalization. You're not going to get that ability to read the crowd and notice that a song may not be hitting the way that you thought it was going to hit, and then have an immediate plan to go into something else. So I bring experience. Obviously, I've been doing this for a while. I've 27 years. I've done over 2,000 weddings at this point. I don't even know how many. They all just merge into one at one point. But yeah, I mean, I've always just been different, because the same thing over and over again makes me bored. And if I get bored, my clients are going to get bored. If my clients get bored, their dance floor is going to get bored, and we don't want that. So I want to bring those personal touches and those, kind of personal music likes and dislikes to each and every wedding. The most important thing that I get from my couples is a do not playlist. And that just tells me everything I need to know about what they're into and what they're not into. And from there, I just kind of mold it to, again, a majority thing, where what can I play that's not on this list or not in this area that will bring a majority of people to the dance floor.
Yeah, that's a really good point for sure. Okay, so now everyone, just recap this. This is DJ Tyler with All Star. And so now, as we wrap up, anything that you may want to say to couples, prospective couples, anybody that maybe I didn't ask, anything you want to say before we wrap up?
I'm not sure. We kind of went over everything. I mean, style, music stuff, all that stuff. We went over that. I think I could probably expand on experience maybe a little bit more. Again, I've been doing this for 27 years, done over 2,000 weddings. I've worked with the New England Patriots, Bose, UMass Lowell, Boston College, Ford. I've worked with Fortune 500 companies. I've done large festivals. I've done small festivals. Yeah, I mean, if you want a different experience from every other wedding that you're looking for, I'm your DJ.
Well, Tyler, DJ Tyler, All Star Weddings, you have been awesome to come on, and I appreciate you sharing a little bit about yourself and your experience. And we certainly will continue to bring you on. And within the next couple of weeks, we'll be doing a Q&A where we welcome in guests, and so we'll talk about that soon. But certainly appreciate you coming on today, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Absolutely, it's great being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler.